Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and family. Welcome once again to the Abundant Way Ministries Tuesday evening empowerment series.
Session. Good evening, everyone.
Session.
Good evening. Come on in.
Come on in, come on in, come on in. So we've got another very exciting month now. So we are done with the month of May. And this is our first session for June.
Half the year is gone.
Half the year is gone. So it is June 3rd already. And boy, how time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Welcome, whoever that is that joined.
Yep. Welcome.
Please type a comment in the chat just to let us know that you are there and that everything is working as planned.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know if you can hear us. Make sure that you can see us. Make sure everything is working. I see Robin Davis on the line.
Robin.
Hello, Robin. And you are joining from YouTube today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am going to assume that if Robin Davis is on, then Wesley Barnes is on. If Wesley Barnes is on, give us a shout out and let us know that Wesley Barnes is in the house. Wesley called me. There he is.
It's Barnfield.
Wesley. I'm sorry, Wesley. I wanted to say Wesley Barnes. Wesley Barnfield. Wesley called me the other day. Robert and Wesley called me, and Wesley said he had missed a few sessions, but he was going back to watch all the sessions.
Oh, he started from the beginning.
Yeah, even the ones he had already seen. He's going to rewatch those.
Okay.
And
awesome.
And he said that they are blessing him. Thank you for that, Wesley. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. That's good to know.
So, and it's good to see you guys are actually joining from YouTube.
Yeah, I like that.
I know that's Mahogany's platform. I wonder if Mahogany is joining this evening.
Our Bible reader.
Yeah, Mahogany, if you're out
scripture reader.
Our scripture reader, our scribe, if you're out there, please give us a shout out. If not, Robin, you're going to have to take her place. All right. Okay, so again, thank you guys for joining. I see there's another person out there. I don't know who that is. That may be you.
Yeah, could be.
Okay. All right. So you all know that we've been dealing with economic empowerment all year. Last month was an awesome, powerful month. We were talking about generational wealth. And this month we're kind of switching gears. We're talking about social justice and how social justice plays a powerful role as it relates to economic empowerment, right? So this is an economic empowerment, faith-based ministry. Mm-hmm. We are a marketplace ministry. Everything that we're talking about is to empower us, and specifically economically. But it may seem like social justice is kind of off-centered from that topic, but believe me when I tell you it is not. And the reason being is because there can be no economic empowerment without justice, without social justice. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. You know what? You know what came to my mind recently?
There she is. Hey, Mahogany.
Hey, Mahogany. What came to my mind is we had gone on a cruise last year, and the cruise stopped in the Dominican Republic. Mm. And I have a friend, a fraternity brother, who actually moved from Akron, Ohio to the DR, and he made that his home. He never went back to take up residence in Ohio again. And when we met him, when the cruise dropped us off in the DR, he sent a few trucks to come pick up all of us that were in our party. We were part of a wedding party, a wedding vow renewal party. Mm-hmm. So there was about 30 of us, and about 20 something of us. He came and picked us all up and took us back to his place. He catered food, and we had a great time. And we fell in love with the DR ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we started thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we could just own a place over here? And first we were thinking like, yeah, we'd have a place to come to when we go on vacation. We'd have a place for friends and family to vacation, and then we can Airbnb it out when we were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started thinking about the upcoming election. And I made the statement, and at this time, we didn't really think that this would happen. I made the statement that if number 45, or is it 47 now?
47.
Number 47, the orange man,
Right.
got
Him.
reelected, and we thought we were just joking around because we didn't think that that would actually happen. I said, if he get elected, I'm moving. I'm leaving the United States. I'm going to set up shop in the DR.
Mhm.
We're just going to buy us a place or build us a place, and that would be it. And then he got elected, and I was like, man, I was joking back then, but look, this is becoming a reality. And now when you look at all that is happening, some days I think that we could end up in a war. I don't know how you feel about it. Yep, the DR. Because when you think about all of the back and forth between the U.S. and China, all of the back and forth between the U.S. and Russia, and one minute they're friends, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are friends, and the next minute they're not, right? And we got Russia threatening the United States with nuclear, uh, you know, with nuclear bombs, nuclear missiles. This is actually happening right now. For those of you who are not paying attention, these things are actually happening. And that was the reason I made that statement. Like, if he gets reelected again, we need to have a place outside of this country to go, because I don't want to be here when all that stuff goes down, right? That was my thought. Um, and it kind of still is, but when I thought about it, like giving it serious thought, what really came to my mind is, even if I could leave, even if we did have a place where we could just pick up and leave, we probably wouldn't. Well, and you know why? Because the rest of the people that we love and care about couldn't. Reality is that we still have family, friends, and loved ones here, right? And so you can't just even if you had all the money in the world, even if we had a place built over in the DR or in Belize or in Barbados. We were looking at all of these places. Even if we had a place there, you couldn't just pick up and leave your parents. We couldn't just pick up and leave our siblings and just pick up and leave our children and grandchildren. And then they've got people that they care about and love, and they're not going to leave them. So you can't really just pick up and leave like that if you have a heart. And the crazy thing is that the reason everyone can't just pick up and leave is because they don't have the finances to do that. We're not in a financial position to, and we're not in a financial position to take everybody. We fill up a whole plane. If we took everybody and everybody they cared about it, that's a whole plane. We don't have that. We don't have it like that, right? Most of our friends and family don't have it like that. And so here's where social justice comes into play, because when we talk about economic empowerment, everybody's not empowered to be able to do those types of things. And the reason is because of the social climate, right? So everything is not on an equal playing field. From education to healthcare to jobs and opportunities, housing, lending, finances. So even if you wanted to start a business, not everybody's going to have the same opportunities to tap into different financing. And so as a result, not everyone would be in a position to just leave when the deal goes down here in the United States of America, if the deal goes down here in the United States of America. And so social justice comes into play, that you can't just pick up and leave because you're leaving your friends, family, and loved ones behind. You really have to stay back and fight. You can't just leave. You got to fight. And that's where social justice comes into play. And so, again, when we talk about economic empowerment, which is what the Abundant Way Ministries is all about, economic empowerment isn't just about personal effort. It's about addressing the structural barriers that keep people from accessing opportunity, right? So it keeps people from housing discrimination. It keeps people from accessing education, right? We think about how expensive education is. And then if you're able to get into higher education, college or whatever, most times people have to take out student loans. So when you graduate, now you graduate in debt. People don't have access to equal opportunity, access to employment and lending. So you can't have economic empowerment without justice, right? Because economic empowerment is not just about me. It's not just about you. It's just not just about one person and what we can do in our own power and our own might. And economic empowerment has to be about the collective, right? And so we can't leave people behind. That's where social justice comes in. You have to stay and fight. So even if we had all the money in the world and we could build the place that we wanted to build, we still wouldn't be able to leave because we'd be leaving so many people behind. And so when you think about social justice creates the space for individuals and communities to build wealth by fighting for fairness, fighting for access, fighting for equity in economic systems, right? So that's what we're talking about in the month of June. Social justice and how it plays an important role in economic empowerment. You can't have one without the other. Not here in the United States of America. You can't. There's a statement that says you can't empower people economically if the system is still oppressing people socially, right? So we can talk about budget, we can talk about entrepreneurship, we can talk about generational wealth, all we want. But if everyone doesn't have access, then it's just talk. You cannot have one without the other. Anything you want to say about that?
No.
All right.
Hey, Daddy.
Hey, Daddy. Can y'all? I want to hear you all's voice. So, what do you think? I need you to type in your comments. What do you think about social justice as it relates to economic empowerment? So Robin said people left the South, left some family members behind to go north, east, and west, even to Canada. So, yep, historically, people left the South looking for better jobs, looking for opportunity. And the plan was they were going to send back for family members. They were going to set up shop, set up a place, in search of opportunity. But when you think about where we are today, like the statement that I made was a real statement that I was actually thinking about back then. I felt like if this person got elected, there's a good chance we might end up in World War III. And I said, I want to get out of this country. It would be quite difficult to send back to get everybody out because we wouldn't have that kind of money and they don't have that kind of money, right? So and let's say there's not even a war, the other possibility that could happen here is that the middle class, which many of us are in, would no longer exist. It would just be the wealthy and the poor, right? And so you're either going to fall on one or the other. That's the other possibility that I was thinking about. And so even if you decided to stay, even if you had to stay, you still have that fight, right? Because either you settle for that struggle, or you fight for a better life. That's social justice, and that's the reason why you can't really just pick up and leave. You can't, and I'm not talking about just moving to another state for a better opportunity, another city for a better opportunity. I'm talking about escaping the social oppression, escaping the oppression. Now, here's an even more relevant analogy, Robin. That's a great analogy that you presented there. Here's one that's even more relevant to what I'm saying, and that is how people escaped slavery to freedom. So I think about Harriet Tubman. So it's more on the lines of an escape to freedom, right? And the dangers and the struggles that entailed, right? The problem is that, she would want to save everyone. The problem is that everyone didn't want to be saved. Yep. And then at that point, you have to make a decision, right? So it's hard because, you either make a choice to get out and try to get everyone that you can out who will go. She had to put a gun to some folks' head and say, you better come on. And some didn't go. Either you make the choice to get out and try to get everyone else that you care about out, or you have to stay and fight. You have to stay and fight. Here's what I learned. Jesus, we're going to,
look at Mahogany's comment.
Okay. Mahogany said, you mentioned that we have to continue to fight for justice. Some folks are tired. Yeah, you will get tired. You will get tired. This fight has been going on longer than you and I have been born, right? And the unfortunate reality is that it can't stop, right? So Martin Luther King said, none of us are free until all of us are free. And so it doesn't matter how much money you have, we're still not free until you know that you and your family and your friends can be free, have the opportunity to live a life of dignity. Now, it's not based on money, but it is based on justice and equity. Yep. Um, yeah, I would use the word equality, um, but equity is even is also a powerful word
Mm-hmm.
because equity does ascribe value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And um, that's what a lot of people are missing. We're fighting for equality, meaning I want to have the same rights as someone else because I think that's fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes I think they forget that you also have to have equity. You got to have value because you won't have generational wealth without value, right? It's okay to say, I want to be just like somebody else. That's equality. I want to be equal to you. Let's keep it real. Let's say what it is. Equality was really about, you know, black people wanted to be treated just like white people. They thought that was fair. But the danger in that is if white people were poor and struggling, would you still want equality? Would you want to be just like them because they're white? No, what you really want is access to the same equity,
Mm-hmm.
access to the same opportunity, access to the same benefits, the same rights, right? You want your life to have you want access to the same value of life. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, yes, we're talking about equality because there is an obvious uh, difference in the way um, certain groups of people are treated differently than others,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we want to make sure that, and this is social justice. We want to make sure that no, you're not going to systemically treat me like I'm less than a human being just because of the color of my skin or just because of my gender or where I'm from
Mm-hmm.
or my pedigree. You won't deny me of certain things if I'm living in the land of the free and the home of the brave. If me or my children can be drafted into a war and we have to fight patriotically for this country, you won't treat me like I am I am of less value
Mm-hmm.
than another person who fought that same war. No, you're going to ascribe the same value. And the thing is, um, you know, I also have to state this. Yes, we're talking about social justice because you got to understand that you have to put up a fight against the social injustices, the social oppression, but we also have to make sure that we value ourselves. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't value yourself, you will never fight.
There's nothing to fight
If you don't value yourself, right, there's nothing to fight for. You won't fight.
for. Mm-hmm.
You got to understand your value in order to understand the fight.
Right. Know what you're missing out.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I went and asked the questions for, well, um, did Jesus did he play any role as it relates to social justice? And sure enough, Mahogany, I'm about to give you your assignment.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to look up the Sermon on the Mount. That is Jesus' first sermon and by far his most famous sermon, and it's a long one. I mean, he preached for 3 chapters.
Was that 3 days?
He was a long-winded preacher. Right. The Sermon on the Mount. I can't remember what chapter it is. No, that's in Luke chapter 4, in verse 18. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He anointed me to preach the gospel or the good news to the poor, and I think the brokenhearted, and set the captives free." Right? Yeah, set the oppressed free. But I believe the Sermon on the Mount is in the book of Matthew. I believe it's chapter 5, 6, and 7. That's the Sermon on the Mount. When you look at the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus starts off with an address, addressing the people he's talking to. Look at Matthew 5, 6, 7, 8. But I believe it starts in 5, Mahogany. Oh, Robin. Yeah, it's a long. Yeah, that's Robin. It's a long sermon. It spans at least 3 chapters, and I believe it starts in chapter 5. Maybe you're telling me it starts in 7. Is that what you're doing? Let me see. You could be right. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yep. It starts in chapter 5. In verse 3, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on the hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
Beatitudes.
Yep. Those are the
Beatitudes.
Starts off with the Beatitudes. When he says, blessed are all of these different categories of people, he's really describing those people who are oppressed in many different ways. This is when we discover that Jesus was, in fact, a social justice preacher, right? He did not only come to heal the sick, but he came to set the captives free. His preaching platform was about the kingdom of heaven. And he, I'm gonna have to use a big word, Melly Boo, here, so hold on to your seat. He used the kingdom of heaven to juxtapose.
Oh, I know that one.
So you know that one?
I know that one.
Okay, preacher. To juxtapose or compare side by side that against the kingdoms of this world, right? To contrast against the kingdoms of this world. in other words, he's saying that the way that the kingdoms of this world, the governments of this world operate is totally different than how the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of God operates, right? And so he's trying to get people to understand that there is a better way of life, right? A better way to live, a better way to operate, a way where there is no inequality. There is no big me's and little u's. There is no oppression based on how much money you have or you don't have. There is no segregation based on the color of your skin or your nationality. Jesus's gospel was for the Jews and the Gentiles, right? It was for everybody. It wasn't reserved for one group of people. Anybody could be a part of the kingdom of God, right? And so he's really preaching social justice. His whole platform was about social justice. In fact, the reason that is one of the main reasons Jesus was executed, because he posed as a threat to power, to the powers that be, right? Because if he keep preaching like that, then people will become empowered and they will break the world system as they know it. And the people who were in power would no longer have that type of control, because Jesus was such a great social justice preacher, right? And when I say preacher, I'm not talking about just words. He walked the walk. He talked the talk, but he also walked the walk. And when you look at those Beatitudes that kick off the Sermon in the Mount, you see that he's talking to people who have been experiencing oppression and persecution from all different walks of life. And he's coming to say, listen, we gonna level this, we gonna bring about change to this, right? Then we turn around and we find that scripture, which I believe is the scripture that we founded this ministry on, when Jesus says the enemy comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I came that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Because he understood that just to have life was not enough, because people who were living under these types of oppressive situation had life. They were living, but they weren't living an abundant life, not the abundant life that God meant for us to have. They were living an oppressed life. He said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. You understand what I'm saying? And so in order for you to have that abundant life, you have to address the systemic oppression that keeps people from it, right? And it would be nice if we could just run from it, right? It would. But running from it won't change a thing. Running from it will not change a thing. And so, unfortunately, we can't just go build a place in Barbados or the DR or Panama or Belize and just get out. Because look at all the people that we would be leaving behind. It actually is our responsibility to stay and fight. Fight for social justice, because none of us are free until all of us are free. I would hate to be the only wealthy person in my family. Right. You know, that means we can travel and go places and can't nobody else go. I want to see everybody go on the trip. Right? Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of money to bring everybody.
Right.
But I wish that everybody had the opportunity to earn the type of money that would allow them to experience and explore those things as well, right? But because of economic oppression, not everybody has the same access. Not everybody has the same opportunities. Now, is it all the fault of the system? No. No. Because if it were, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Nope.
Right? So there is still a responsibility on the individual, right? Each individual does have an opportunity to fight. They can make you can make a decision to fight for the type of life you want to live.
That's right.
You know, but you will understand that there will be some challenges, and some of the challenges will be personal challenges, but there are other challenges that are brought on by powers, social powers, political powers that be. Because you got people who feel like they can't be great unless somebody else isn't. And that's not true, right? Some people feel like I can't be wealthy unless somebody else is poor, right? And so that's what kind of fuels that oppressive mentality.
You know, some of that happens right in our own community.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It happens right in our own community. Everybody is, trying to be here, and they stepping on everybody else that's trying to get to the same place because they want to be here. They want to be the one here. Well, we can all be here. All we have to do is help one another to get there.
Right.
And that's the sad part.
Right. That's an interesting statement that you made. Mahogany, did you already put that up there?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Mahogany said, because of economic oppression, some people never left the city they were born. I want you to go a little deeper on that, Mahogany, as I talk about that, because it's crazy, because I know people from when I grew up in Cleveland that never left Cleveland, never been out of Cleveland at all. When I lived in Detroit, I met people who lived on the west side that never been to the east side. And people who lived on the east side never been to the west side, let alone outside of Detroit. And part of it is because of economic oppression. And the most dangerous tenet of economic or social oppression is the oppression that's in your own mind. Because when you think about it, there's nothing that there's no wall, no physical wall that prevents you from going from one side of the town to the other side. No physical barrier that prevents you from crossing a state line. A lot of that is mental, but it came from years and years of oppressive conditioning, right? And so it is a product of social and economic oppression for a person to never even imagine what life might be like outside of their current environment. And that's the danger of social and economic oppression, that it affects your mind in such of a way that you can't even imagine or you can't even dream. And if they can get you there, then their work is done. They don't even have to have to fight hard to oppress you because you're already oppressed in your mind.
Yep.
There are people who, even though higher education is available, won't pursue it because they've never seen anyone in their family go to college. So who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not bright enough. I don't have the funds. Right? But when you have been exposed to it and you understand the value of it, you understand where that might take you, you say, I may not have, your mind begins to imagine, I'm going to college. I may not have the money, but I will find a way. If that means getting grants, getting student loans, getting scholarships, whatever it is, if your mind is free, then you will at least try to find a way. But if your mind is oppressed, you won't even try to leave the house. You won't step off the porch. And there's so many people, to your point, who've been sitting on the porch for generation after generation after generation, and it stemmed from social and economic oppression.
Self-oppression is dangerous.
Yeah. That is really oppressing the mind,
mm-hmm.
right? If I can make you think you're nobody, then my job is done. I don't have to do anything to you. I can just watch you sit on the porch and be nobody, right? And the only way, and unless you begin to see the opportunities and the possibilities and understand the value that you have, right? They will stay glued to that porch. They're going to stay stuck on the porch. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Stay stuck. And
it's funny to imagine it, but you probably could literally, in some neighborhoods, drive down your old street and see the same people sitting on that same porch. Mm-hmm. The world has changed and moved far beyond where they are, but because they're still mentally oppressed, they can't see themselves off of that porch, mm-hmm. right? And the thing is, even with the systems that are in place, being the way that they are, you can't blame everything on the system, because there are people who will probably live right next door to them, decided that they wanted their life to be different. Mm-hmm. And so they chose a different path. They made different sacrifices. They took a different discipline. Mm-hmm. People might say, you know what, I'm going to learn a different trade or a different skill. I'm going to learn how to read. I'm going to learn how to do something. And you live right next door to somebody who, in their mind, they just keep telling themselves, I can't. Mm-hmm. Right? And then there are some people who physically can't, like right. They literally can't. And that's where social justice really comes into play, because now, remember what I said, one of the main purposes for pursuing wealth is not just for yourself, but so that we can look out for others. Mm-hmm. Right? Remember, we talked about love your neighbor as yourself, and how Jesus quoted Moses in Matthew, I believe it was chapter 25 or 26, verse 11. Jesus is actually quoting Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 15, mm-hmm. verse 11, when he said, the poor, you shall have what you always. But he said what you're supposed to do is be open-handed and open-hearted and give to those in need. Well, you can't give what you don't have. Mm-hmm. And so there's a reason for those who have the ability to excel. You've got to be able to be a blessing to those who are physically or mentally challenged, or challenged in a way that they can't help themselves, at least at that time, right? That's one of the purposes of wealth, right? And so when we talked about generational wealth, we learned that it wasn't just about your bloodline, your genealogy. It's about community, right? Because this thing takes a long time. Because what it was, who was that said? Oh, it was Mahogany who said some people are just tired. Yeah, because this fight it takes a long time, right? Yep. So that's why you need generational wealth, because it won't be solved in a day. These problems won't be solved overnight. It takes generations and generations after generation after generation. And we may die never seeing the battle won, but we have to fight. Gotta fight. All right? So Jesus didn't just preach salvation, he challenged unjust power structures. He flipped tables in the temple. The social justice preacher did. He uplifted the poor, and he called out exploitation. That's when we in Luke chapter 4, he says he was anointed to preach the good news to the poor, set the captives free. True kingdom work reflects both righteousness, and you heard that word repeated over and over again in those Beatitudes. Yep. Thirst for righteousness, being persecuted for righteousness' sake, right? That righteousness is not about you being a good person. Oh, I'm righteous. Nah, it's about equality and equity. That's righteousness, right? Righteousness and justice. And justice is not a side issue. It was actually the central theme of the gospel. So for those of y'all who are caught up in church only to the point of speaking in tongues and shouting and running up and down the aisle, you missed the point. Is those things are powerful. It reveals the supernatural presence of God, right? But there's also a very practical presence of God, and that's all about social justice, right? That's when he comes to that's when Jesus stood against the religious and political structures. It was both the religious and political structures that actually brought upon the crucifixion, execution of Jesus. But he stood there, right? He stood there and he fought. He could have left. He had the power to leave. He said, not that any man could take my life, but I lay it down, and in 3 days I'll pick it up again. He had the power to call legions of angels. He could have ended all of that, but he decided to fight with and for the people. Social justice, right? Because again, none of us are free until all of us are free. And even he knew that this fight was going to last a long time. So he did it in such a way that his words would be remembered for a very long time. So how long has this Bible been in existence? People are still talking about this same man, this same preacher, well over 2,000 years later. That's how important this is, right? You mean to tell me that this guy was on to something so significant that his words were recorded in the book of time, and we're still fighting? Because we will still fight. The poor you should have with you always, right? And so the thing is, we gotta keep the fight. Boom. All right. What you gotta say about that? Look like you just loving this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
You in your zone.
I'm in my zone, and this is my last point. So I need to hear from you guys. My last point: without justice, economic empowerment is not even sustainable. It's not scalable. Without justice, there's no reason to talk about economic empowerment because you won't be able to sustain it. You won't be able to scale it, meaning to grow it, to spread it, to make it flourish without justice, right? So empowerment without justice is really fragile. It's just like, you ever seen a person who only thinks about money? Like that's the only thing they can think about. Nothing else matters to them. The rest of their life is empty. You understand what I'm saying? That's how economic empowerment is without justice, because it means that you really only care about your own, here's another big word, existential situation. Hit you again. That's where generational wealth comes into play, right? Exactly. So empowerment without justice is fragile. It only helps you as an individual, but justice changes conditions for whole communities, right? Economic empowerment is about changing or giving you the power to change your financial situation, your financial condition. But social justice helps change conditions for the whole community. So Mahogany said that's where generational wealth comes in. The whole community it then begins to speak to generations, right? Okay, because it would be a sad commentary for even us if we called our little group or our little family or our friends and family network a community, and we all became economically empowered, and then we died, and then the next group of people coming behind us had to start all over from scratch. That would be a sad commentary. And so it has to be generational. We have to understand that this fight will continue, and we have to be committed to the fight, right? We have to be committed, understanding that part of my role as a human being in this space and time on this planet Earth is to participate in that fight. And then when I die, the people behind me, it's their responsibility to carry on the fight, right? Keep feeding the hungry, keep providing shelter for the homeless, keep giving clothes to the naked, keep giving food, right? Setting up food shelters, keep fighting for education, keep fighting for equal rights and equal opportunity, keep fighting for accessible health care, right? We've got to do it while we're here. We've got to tell our children to do it when we're gone, and they've got to tell their children to do it when they're gone, right? Because these things will continue to oppress us. It's nothing new. It likely will not go away. And so we just have to make sure that we continue to put things in place to help people through it while we're here. We're here to help each other, right? We have to make sure we can educate our family, both related or not. That's correct. Yeah. What's that trust fund, baby? Trust fund babies don't have to work for anything. We Black people have to work extra hard to obtain and maintain economic freedom. Right. Yeah. It's interesting. And we may talk about that during this month. Like, we need to talk about that trust fund baby, right? Because there is there can be a different worldview, life view between a person who was handed everything versus a person who had to work for and or fight for whatever it is that they have. So it's not in all cases that the trust fund baby or the one who inherited generational wealth, it's not in all cases that they're agnostic, another word, to what we're talking about. Because you do have some who, as that generational wealth was passed down, the values and the knowledge was passed down with it. And so they do have the same type of fight and concern, right? They do exist. It's not everybody who was born with a silver spoon in their mouth doesn't have the same level of care. But there are a lot of people who, if they don't understand the past, right? And that's the reason why this thing has to be generational. Generational wealth is also probably more so about passing the knowledge, passing down knowledge and wisdom. Because what will happen is if you do amass wealth and just pass it on without the knowledge and the wisdom and the reason why, then you'll have that trust fund baby syndrome, that silver spoon syndrome, where these babies just ended up with all this money and they running around here crazy, right? Without a care in the world. We have a deeper responsibility, right? The money is not about the money, but the money then becomes a tool that you use to continue that fight, to carry it on.
Robin has comments.
Social justice deals with educating healthy lifestyles. Absolutely. Tips such as teaching about the power of prayer, fasting, meditation. Absolutely. And why is that important when it comes to social justice? I think it's important because if you don't have a relationship with God through prayer, fasting, and meditation, you will get frustrated when you realize that this is a forever fight. It will take you back to Mahogany's first statement, like some people are just tired, right? And if you don't have that relationship with that type of relationship with God, you will get mentally and spiritually worn out, right? And so you need that prayer, that fasting, and that meditation to revive yourself. That's why we have revivals. Because we know you're going to have to get up and fight again, right? As soon as we solve one problem, another one will come up. And as we see in this administration, old problems starting to come back, right? They're trying to undo stuff that was done. They're trying to break stuff that was already fixed. Understand what I'm saying? And that can become very frustrating and make you want to throw up your hands and quit. But if you have a relationship with God, prayer, fasting, meditation, you will have the strength to keep moving forward, to keep pushing on.
They want us to break. They want us to give up.
All right. So now, okay, we got 1 minute. And so in summary, social justice ensures equal access to resources. It ensures protections. It ensures opportunities needed for generational wealth building. And lastly, it's not enough to teach budgeting. I mentioned that earlier. So when we talk about economic empowerment, we talk about budgeting and how to save and how to invest and how to not live off of everything that you make and try to bring in more money than you're spending out and all of that stuff when it comes to financial health. But it's not enough. You can be the best budgeter in the world, but it's not enough. We got to also fight for systems that allow people to earn, that allow people to grow, and allow people to keep what they have built. It's not enough to just budget, to just teach budgeting. But now we're talking about how do we make this beneficial for everyone. You got to fight. That's the word for today. Social justice is all about fighting for the people. All right. That's all I have, ladies and gentlemen. Did you have anything else? And so we're gonna I just want to put that on your heart and your mind that there is a bigger picture. We've been talking about economic empowerment and building generational wealth, but there's a bigger picture. It's not just about money. It's not just about budgeting. It's not just about investing. There is a bigger picture. Yes, we want this thing to go from generation to generation to generation, but guess what? There will always be some high, what the Bible says, principalities in high places that are set against equal rights and equal opportunity. And part of our job and part of our responsibility and part of our reasoning for building generational wealth is to be a hedge fence against those powers. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that made sense because we're going to go up from here. So tune in next week. You trying to hook it up, ain't you? Tune in next week and we're going to take it further. I want to hear your comments. Thank y'all for joining. Mahogany, thank y'all for commenting. Wesley Barnfield. I see my father online. I don't know who else was online, but there's some other folks out there I see. I don't see your name, but I see your number. And I know today was more of a serious session because I need for you to understand that it's bigger than money. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. And the fight must go on. So until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
We love you. And good night.
Good night.